Good evening. I'm going to call to order our June 6th meeting of the Baldwin County Planning and Zoning Commission. If you will, at this time, we'll stand. We'll have a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Our Father, we're so thankful to you for the day and for the blessings you've given us. We're thankful for this great county we live in. We're thankful, Father, for all that make it that way. Father, we're thankful for the politicians, for our first responders, for our county staff that works hard to make this meeting possible, Father, for just a great place to live, and we appreciate that. So, Father, we just ask that what we do tonight honors that by doing good planning, and, Father, that you'll give us insight that we need to do that. May we show respect to each other and honor you in how we conduct ourselves, and we pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'll call the roll. Brandon Bias, Robert Davis, Jason Padgett, Michael Mullick, Greg Seibert,
Here.
Bill Booyer,
Here.
Jamie Stradiger, Mike McKenzie, Glenn Seal, Diane Burnett, Michael Fletcher, Danny Bolton, George Waters, and our newest member, Reed Key. Reed, we're glad to have you as part of our Planning Commission. So, all right, we have a quorum, so at this time, we'll deal with our minutes of our last meeting. So you've had a copy of the May 2nd work session and our May 2nd regular meeting sent to you. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at that. If there are no corrections, I'll entertain a motion that both of those be approved.
Move they be approved, please.
A second. Mr. Bowyer's made the motion to be approved. Mr. Bolton has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I abstain.
Okay, one abstention. All right, at this time, our planning director will come and give us a little presentation of some things we need to know before we get started tonight.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. Just want to quickly go over our public hearing guidelines. We do have several public hearings today on both zoning and subdivision cases, but our guidelines that we go by during this meeting, the public comments should be made only during the public hearing portion. So if you have a comment on one of our items, please wait till that item's up and the chairman opens the public hearing. When you're called to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. All comments should be directed towards the chairman, and he can direct them to wherever they need to go, to staff or applicant. The comments should be focused on whatever the current application is, and not on other items or speculative items. And comments from individuals should be limited to 3 minutes. And if you're here to speak on behalf of a group, that can be expanded to 5 minutes. You just need to let the chairman know that you're speaking on behalf of a larger group. On the rezoning cases, just to remind everyone that there are 11 factors in the zoning ordinance that we are required to review each zoning case by, and it's directed at land use and compatibility of the proposed land use, the proposed zoning district. Those, you're going to see these in all of our presentations today, but quickly, it's is it compatible with development pattern? Has there been a change in the conditions since the property was originally zoned? Does it better conform to the master plan? Are there any conflicts with public improvements? Are there any adverse effects to traffic? And that's really more about the larger transportation network, not any specific on-site improvements. Number 6 is it consistent with the development pattern of the area? Number 7 is a logical expansion of an adjacent zoning. Number 8 is it timing appropriate given the current development trends? Number 9, does it impact any environmental or historic areas or resources? And 10 is there any adverse impacts to health, safety, and wellness of the community? Of course, 11 is the catch-all if there's any other specific issues with that site. So when you're hearing the zoning cases, please keep those in mind and make your motions relevant to these 10 items. So with that, we'll turn it over. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We started something recently that to help streamline our meeting somewhat, and we created what's called a consent agenda, which means we have at this time 10 items that we have already looked at in a work session, and we, the Planning Commission, prepared to recommend approval on these. But I'm going to call them out one at a time. If you by chance are here tonight and wanted to speak on the item, whether you were opposed to it or you just have questions, please let me know when I call it out, because if you do, I'm going to pull it off the consent and it'll be coming back up later in the meeting. But if you don't say anything, these are all going to get grouped together, and we're going to make one motion to approve all of these. Okay? So I hope everybody understands. I'll go slow. I'll call them out, make sure there's no one here that wants to speak on one of these items. So the first item is Cottonwood Estates. It's an extension, subdivision extension. Anyone here that wanted to speak on that item? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, we're going to put it on. I'm just going to go through. You're right. I understand. No public hearing on that one. Bell Forest Estates. This is a subdivision name change. All right. The next one is Floor Medic. This is a commission site plan approval for a 5,000 square foot Floor Medic facility. Anybody here, you have questions on that one?
Yes, sir, I sure do.
All right, I'll come back to you. We're going to bring it back up then. I'm going to pull it off.
Okay.
Lillian Medical. This is a commission site plan approval for a medical clinic over in Lillian. Anybody here? Okay. Toy Box South Storage. This is a 14,000 square foot storage facility on Roscoe Road. Anybody here on that one? Okay. Baldwin 13 subdivision. Someone on that one? Okay. It'll come up later in the meeting then. Spartan Heights subdivision. This is the 3-lot subdivision. Nobody? Okay. How about the re-subdivision of lots 1 through 4 CDS subdivision? This is an 8-lot subdivision on Strasburg Lane, north of Leiterman Road. Anybody here on that one? All right, then Heritage Estates subdivision. It's a 7-lot subdivision over in off of County Road 48, west of on West Boulevard in Silver Hill. You have a question on that one? I'm sorry? All right, I'll pull it off and then we'll bring it back up in the meeting then. All right, and then the last one is the re-subdivision of Lot 13A Pine Crest Acres subdivision. This is a 2-lot subdivision over on County Road 87, west of County Road 87, south of US Highway 90. Anybody here on that one? You got a question on that one?
I'm going to oppose for it.
Okay, no, then I need to take it off. Thank you. All right, those are all the items that were on the consent, so we're going to pull off. So I'm going to go back now, and we're going to deal with those that that we can. All right, so I'm going to, for the Planning Commission purposes here, I'm going to group these. The first one is case number PER 24-17 Cottonwood Estates Extension. The second one is Bell Forest Estates. The third is CSP 2415, the Lillian Medical. Then there is the Toy Box South Storage, CSP 24-20. And then SC 24-15, Spartan Heights Subdivision. And the SC 24-18, resub of lots 1 through 4, CDS subdivision. All right, those are the items on the consent agenda. I'm going to open the public hearing. Since no one signed up for those or a voice that wanted to speak to those, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion on those.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda item.
All right, Mr. Davis has made a motion that we approve those consent items. Mr. Seibert has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so now we're going to go back and we'll deal with these that were pulled off the consent in the order that they are on the agenda. The first item is CSP 24-11, which is the floor medic. So staff, you'll need to be prepared to come back up on these that have been pulled off. Instead of doing a presentation on these, Jay, can we just call up the individuals that have issues and let us find out what their question is and just deal with that?
Yeah, we don't have to do a presentation unless the commission would like to.
I'd rather not. All right, so someone had a question on the CSP 24-11, the floor medic. All right, come on up to the center podium here and give us your name and address and see if we can get an answer to your question.
My name is Raymond Klein, and I got some property adjacent to it. And I see they got designated wetlands in this on the west side of it. And the only thing I was really concerned about was that and setting the culvert depth on Highway 13. 13 needs to be dug out right there real bad. Been trying to get it done for years. Joe Fowles couldn't even get it done. And before he sets that culvert, I got a low place in a field that it drains off of, and that's the reason I wanted to get it done. Y'all want to see some of the water that comes through there, and this isn't Danny. This is just some of the water, if you would like to see it.
Sure. You can take it to one end or the other and let them pass it down.
That's really my only two concerns that I have. Actually, I'm quite satisfied with the blueprint that was wrote up. It's quite a bit, it's real impressive. The engineering company that did this done an excellent job, I think. But what I'm worried about is Mr. Dyson ever opens that up over there and subdivides it, we're going to have more water going through there than that. And that was after the storm. That was during daylight. And I've got numerous other pictures too, but I know I don't want to waste all y'all's time.
All right, so Mark, you want to address where y'all are on this with the site plan?
Yes, I spoke with Mr. Klein Tuesday, actually. He came to a environmental advisory committee meeting, and we're looking into the maintenance of that ditch on County Road 13 in the segment that is across the street from him, as well as one in front of his house. If it's determined it's the county's, and by all means, if there's maintenance required, we're going to perform that maintenance. If it is maintenance responsibility of the city of Fairhope, we're going to reach out to their public works department and see if we can help encourage them to get that scheduled.
Okay. All right.
That's all I gotta say.
Thank you
Very much.
Thank you very much. All right. I think this was the only one that had an item on this, so any questions or comments? Anybody on the Planning Commission have any further questions for staff?
Mr. Ackerman, how long is it going to take to determine whether or not, determine who that belongs to?
Well, probably tomorrow. Obviously we had some rain earlier this week, and so my crews have been out kind of dealing with some drainage issues, as you may understand. So we should be able, we've about caught up on everything. So tomorrow I've already got a meeting scheduled with them in the morning.
Okay. I just didn't know if this was something that we needed to table until some resolution was, come to either who owns it, who's going to maintain it, and if we need to see if that maintenance can be done in some, amount of time.
Yeah. When I spoke with Mr. Klein, what he has is just a spot in the ditch that appears to need to be excavated out. It's a high spot.
Right.
And I don't think either one of those are going, whether it's us or Fairhope, I feel very confident. They have a very competent Public Works Department that will be able to address it fairly rapidly.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the section, to help out Mr. Ackerman real quick, the section of County Road 13, this subject property fronts upon, it's not showing up in our maps as a county-maintained road, so I think Mark's recollection is correct, is that would be a City of Fairhope road, and a turnout permit would be requested from them.
All right. Any other questions? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve.
Mr. Brewer's made a motion that we approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Mullick has seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item was SC 24-13, Baldwin 13 subdivision. I'm going to open the public hearing on this one. And if you will, yes, if you'll just come up to the podium, please. Give us your name and address.
Hi, my name's Mary Beth Agins, and my address is 9275 Berkshire Loop in Daphne, Alabama. And my property, as well as some of the residents that are here with me, back up to this property that you're discussing today.
Okay.
Okay. When we built our homes 20 years ago, we were told that was a wetlands and nothing would ever change. It would always be the trees and the natural environment, as well as all the water that runs through there. Now our concern is all the trees have been taken off. It's already been rezoned once. Now it's going to be rezoned twice. And I guess we're not really for or against it, but we just want to figure out what's going to happen with all the water that currently runs on the property. And not only that, I know you're all aware of 13 and all the building that's going on between 64 and 104. We already have traffic stops. We live right by the traffic circle right there on 64 and 13. And it takes a long, long time to get out in the mornings. And this property, there are no turn lanes on our property, or there won't be any on there, where we're asking if there will be turn lanes. So we're worried about the traffic. We're worried about all of the water, because the Army, as I understood, I used to be president of our subdivision, and as I understood it probably 15 years ago, sometime after we moved in, when all the trees were cut down, the owner of the property at that time tried to reroute the water. And there was a big problem. The Army Corps of Engineers made them stop. So now our concern is that water going to be rerouted and come directly onto all of our property? So we would like for you to take a look at that, as well as the traffic, and also where will the water retention go? Will they have an area just for that, and whose property is that going on?
Okay, first off, you realize these are just 3 lots. I mean, they're not
Correct.
Developing any roadways. These are 3 home sites.
Okay.
Okay. Mark, you want to? I know that the
I can
engineer
answer a
submitted the
couple of
drainage.
those. So this, you're correct, Mr. Chairman, this is just a 3-lot subdivision. This property is zoned B2, so it's a commercial zoning district. Any kind of commercial development that would come on, be proposed on it in the future would have to go through a site plan process that would review drainage and traffic and the necessity of turn lanes and access and things like that. So Anything like that would be a future step of development of this. This current application is just to divide the property as it is. You can see there's a drainage easement that is showing up on the plat, so that easement would remain in effect unless they had to come back and modify the plat. The wetlands are shown there and the drainage easement. So the current subdivision is not proposing to change any of those conditions. If anything like that were to ever be proposed in the future, it would come back through a site plan process and be resolved with the final.
So on lot 1, there'll be a house there, correct?
It could be a business. I mean, it's commercial zone, yeah. So anything they do there, they would need to come back through a site plan approval process. And the fact that it has the drainage easement in place, they would not be allowed to impede that water.
Okay, so you're saying right now then, you're just dividing this property. So there will be 3 different lots to it.
That's correct.
And then if anybody wants to build on that property, they would have to come back through you all.
That's correct.
Yeah,
So the water as it is will stay as it is currently?
currently. But if they,
Currently.
before they can do anything, they'll have to submit something to the staff, and they'll determine whether it comes back to us, or they'll review it in-house, and they'll cover things like drainage.
Okay, could we get a copy of that picture? I don't think that came in our letter, of the 1, 2, and the 3.
Sure, yeah,
Just to get to our board.
yeah, it's online in the agenda packet, but yes, you can call the planning and zoning office, they can get you a copy.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, that answers our question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing on that item. Anybody have any questions on this item? Ms. Booth is here waiting if you do have a question.
I have no questions. Just answer anything you may have.
All right, if no question, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve the re-subdivision of Lot 44A.
Second.
All right, Mr. Cyrus made a motion to approve. Mr. Boozer seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item that we had was the SC 24-20 Heritage Estates subdivision. I'll open the public hearing on this. This is preliminary final plat approval for a 7-lot subdivision. So I don't know who it was that had a question on this one.
Oh.
Okay, all right. All right, anybody have any questions? We've already looked at it as a commission, so I'll close the public hearing then, and I'll entertain a motion on this one.
I make a motion, we accept it.
Mr. Bolton's made a motion to approve. Do you have a second?
Second.
Ms. Burnett? Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and the next item was case number SC 24-23. This is the re-subdivision of Lot 13A Pinecrest Acres subdivision. This is a 2-lot subdivision. I'll open the public hearing on this, and whoever it was, yes, sir, come up to the podium if you will. Give us your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Cowan. I live at 25998 Pinecrest Circle. It's Lot 1 directly across on the south side from where this property is. I also own 25984 Pinecrest Circle, Lot 3. They're not together. My son actually owns the other 3 in between us. We would oppose this, and I don't know if my position would pigeonhole into one of the things up here. I'm going to try and make it that way, but our basic opposition to this is a change in the character of the neighborhood. When we have been out there, either the second or third people who moved out there in 1995. They're larger lots. The minimum size then was 3 acres. The backside even had one, I think there was 6 acres. And we would oppose subdividing, which was in the covenants. I know that's not a problem here, but in the covenants, you couldn't subdivide. You could only have 1 home per lot. We would object to the smaller lot size simply because of home density and an increase in traffic in the area. The characteristic of the neighborhood is large 3-acre parcels, and we were, that's the way we preferred it, and would like to keep it that way. I know, and I understand precedent has been set. That's probably my biggest opposition here, is precedent has been set in this neighborhood. In fact, this lot has been subdivided once already. In fact, it was good friends of my family who did it, Brian and Carol Jackson. I did not know they were going to do it until after it was done, or we would have objected then. Also, on the back side of the circle, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it was subdivided again. Didn't know it was being subdivided. If there was a sign up there, we never go to the back side of the horseshoe, because we're the very first lot on the corner. So if I had known, I would have opposed it. I know about this one, so I'm here to oppose it.
Okay. All right, so you're saying that your restrictive covenants, they'll say the lot shouldn't be, or not to be re-subdivided?
I don't want to lie to you. I was one of the first ones with the covenants. I believe it said that you cannot subdivide, and I think, well, I know for sure it also said only one home per lot.
All I would say to you is we don't regulate that, so if you think that's there, you need to research that. That's something you would have to pursue outside of this.
Yes, sir.
But all right. Anything else?
No, sir. I appreciate your time.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Either way it goes.
All right. You heard the comments, so anybody have any questions? Questions for staff? No questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve.
Mr. Davis has made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Booyer second the motion. I hear apprehension on, just make sure, any questions on this motion? Any comments or thoughts?
I have a question. Is this one that it's worth giving it a little bit of time to research or give some time for some questions maybe to be answered about covenants or whatever that may be in place that we don't know about currently?
I think the answer to that is no.
Yeah, this board, the county cannot enforce restrictive covenants by the subdivision, so just to remind the board, this is an unzoned area of the county, which could go down to 7,500 square foot lots, so this does meet all the subdivision requirements. They're actually greater than the minimums, and anything with any restrictive covenants is a civil matter that would have to be taken up with the owners.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and seconded to approve, so I'm going to call. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Roll call.
Mr. Davis? Mr. Mullick? Mr. Seibert?
Opposed.
Mr. Boer? Aye. Ms. Stratiger? Aye. Ms. Burnett? Yes. Mr. Fletcher? Yes. Mr. Bolton? Mr. Waters? Mr. Key? Yes. Motion carries.
Okay. All right. That finishes those items that were originally listed on the consent agenda. We'll now move into our other business, and beginning with case number PUD 24-05. This is the Michael Sorrell RV Park. We'll open the public hearing. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Mitchell?
All right. So this one is a 49-site RV park, and this shows a location down in the southern part of the county, the Bon Secour area. Planning District 27 is unzoned. All roads would remain private. They're proposing the Riviera Water, Baldwin EMC, and then on-site septic. There was not a traffic study for this phase, but they are proposing a second phase, so the traffic study will be done at that point. Drainage improvements are recommended. Wetland study has been submitted. We received an email from Chief Paul Shoenight, the local fire and rescue, saying there was not fire, they don't have, fire hydrants in this area, but that they do have adequate supply in their trucks to be able to put out a fire for an RV park, or if there was something at the clubhouse, and they do recommend the installation of a fire alarm system, and that's something that would be addressed at the building permitting stage. And this is the location, so it's at Molesby and Kennedy Roads. And just some of the features, so there are 2 entrances, with one of them being a boulevard entrance, and they would need to widen Molesby Road for 300 feet in each direction to 24 feet. That's a fairly typical requirement for subdivision, or for RV parks. Detention ponds, now these 2 ponds here already exist, and then a third one will be constructed. And to show the shift away from proposed public sewer to septic, here you can see the septic infrastructure being added in at both of the entrances on Kennedy Road and along Molesby Road. So I mentioned the road widening. Another thing that came up, because there wasn't a traffic study required at this point, but there are some concerns about the local road network, especially turn radius around some of the intersections. We have asked that during the construction plan review phase that some of those local intersections be looked at, and there might be some improvements required for the intersections. So the 2 conditions would be the traffic assessment of intersections, our local road conditions, and then the widening of Molesby Road. Any questions?
All right, any questions for staff?
I have a
Burnett?
question. I didn't see it here. Was there a request about not putting in sidewalks in this one?
I'm trying
There
to remember
was
if that was
something.
one, the waiver request, applicant has requested a waiver from requirements to install sidewalk and curb and gutter. Now, the reason sidewalks and curb and gutter as well are difficult inside the RV parks because you have so many breaks every single time there's an RV site, so we don't typically require this. We usually do accept the waiver request, and that's something that's usually done by the permit engineer.
So it doesn't come to us for the waiver?
Not typically, because it's not a variance request, it's a waiver request. And so that's usually handled by the permit engineer or the highway department if we defer to them.
Okay. The only reason I ask is because the laundry bath is on one end, and it's quite a distance to get to from the other areas. That's the only reason
Right,
I
so
was
the laundry
concerned.
is here in the north and the clubhouse here. And typically, there's not a lot of traffic. So I know the ones I've been, people typically walk on the road because there's not a lot of traffic. But you're right, that would be quite a walk.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
On the cul-de-sac in there, I can't read it because it's got a sign over it says,
The dumpster.
it's the diameter of it. What is the diameter of it?
I am sorry, it is covered, but we always check that during the review, and I can't remember what the requirement is. It
I think the requirement's 80 feet, I believe.
80? Yes, and we do look at that during the review process. The permit engineer usually looks at that,
Okay.
but
That's the
I
only thing
confess
I
I
had.
can't see it either. But we did look at that, and that's part of the checklist.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Am I right? I don't have anybody signed up to speak
Here
on
we
this
go.
one? Other than Chris, I know, but Chris, you want to come on up?
And you're right, and I found, we have another sheet where it's not covered, the next page, and you can see it, radius of 48. And so if the diameter has to be 80, then it meets that, or 70, whichever it is.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm just here to answer any questions that you may have. It is 48 feet in radius, so. and we
Chris,
swi-
I asked a question in work session, just for my own satisfaction. On now that you put the septic tank and fill lines, do you have to provide 100% expansion on what you put in?
Yes, so if you look in here, there's septic systems labeled, and then there's effluent fields reserved.
Okay.
So if you have 50 by 100 of septic fields, you have to keep that 50 by 100 somewhere else on the property, just in case that one fails, you have another spot you can put it.
Okay.
And we also had a local septic designer look at this layout, and he looked at the soils and everything else, and he said that it's doable.
Okay.
Chris,
Any
are
other
these
questions
lots
for
going to be
Chris?
Yeah, are these lots going to be for sale? or-
No, sir.
No, it won't.
No.
They'd have to come back for another process, the preliminary plat approval, to be able to sell those.
Just, we had this last month with the waiver on the sidewalk from the curb and gutter, and the only issue I have with it is if they are full-time residents and they come to the area, they have kids that have to get to the school bus or something to that extent, so.
I understand.
Okay.
Any other questions for Chris? Do you have anything else, Chris?
No, sir, I'm good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I had no one else signed up to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing on this one. Unless you have a question, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve case number PUD 24-05, subject to staff conditions.
Okay?
A
Have
sec-
a motion for approval by Mr. Cybert.
A second?
Ms. Burnett seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next item. Make sure I got this right. Am I missing something on the agenda? We should have, oh, there, I'm sorry, you got them both together. All right, we're going to have to deal with the first one, which is HCA 24-02, which is the Daphne VIP Storage LLC. This is a highway construction setback appeal. And then behind that, we'll have the storage commission site plan approval for that. But let's deal with the highway construction setback appeal first. So I'll open the public hearing on this one. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on that, on this one? Okay. Callie?
All right. So, like you stated, this is a highway construction setback appeal for an existing storage building to remain. This is located in Planning District 15. Here's a locator and site maps. So, County Road 54 East is classified as a major collector, which requires a 75-foot setback from the center line of the right-of-way. And then they are requesting this variance, requesting this setback appeal because they are planning to expand the use of the property by adding more storage units on it. However, they cannot do so without first coming into compliance with this existing one. So currently, the existing storage building is approximately 53.6 feet from the center line of the right-of-way instead of the required 75. But this would be the only structure they need the appeal for. Everything else would be meeting the 75 or greater. And because of this, staff is recommending approval. I can answer any questions.
Okay, so dealing first with the existing building that's on site, that's across the highway construction setback. We must take action on the request for allowing that building to stay as is before they can move forward with the new units. Anybody have any questions for staff? Okay, I had a couple of folks signed up. Let me go ahead and call you up. And I don't know if you want to speak on this appeal or if you're speaking on the new storage, but I'll call you up and you can say we're going to talk about the storage unit next, but right now we're dealing with the appeal on the setback. So Frank McKinley? Okay.
My name's Frank McGinley. I was just coming to just tell you that when we bought the property, I think that thing's been there for 26 years. Somebody else built it before me, and I guess that was before they had decided that was a major collector or whatever, and everything else obviously would be within the setbacks, but that's all I have on it.
All right. How about Jason Wooten? Okay. All right. And no one else signed up on this particular portion of this item, so let's deal with this one first. Anybody have any questions on the appeal?
Got one. It is not going to be in the highway, it's just in the right-of-way, right?
It's not in the right-of-way, it's within the setback.
It's 21 feet.
It's
out.
it's on their property, but
Yeah.
but it's just, it's over the construction setback line.
Okay, and that, the building has, is that, the building got 20 units in it? Okay. I was just curious, you know, the only thing I could say, in the future, if they decide to do it, they'll have to take one unit off the end of it, move it to the other end.
Well, if we give them approval tonight, it'll remain, and as staff mentioned earlier, the only thing would be, and I guess you know this, if the building were ever damaged more than 50%, then it will have to meet the setback requirement, not the one that we may approve tonight, but the original construction setback. So, but that's only if it's ever destroyed. Any other questions? All right, I'd entertain a motion on this item first.
I make a motion we accept it.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded that we, by Mr. Bolton and Mr. Seibert, to approve the appeal. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we'll open the public hearing for case number CSP 24-09, which is the Daphne VIP Storage LLC. Now, this is on the commission site plan approval for the storage facility they're proposing. Anybody? And I've already asked that question. So, do you need to make a presentation on this one?
Only if y'all want to see it again.
Well, if only. You're learning quick. I don't know who's training who here. Only if you need to add anything. I think we haven't gone through it in work session, but let me do this. Anybody have any questions for staff? All right. Then Mr. Wooten, do you want to come up at this time?
Jason Wooten, I'm the engineer for the site. I'll answer any technical questions.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? I guess not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, unless you have any questions, I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Move we approve it.
Mr. Brewer's made a motion to approve. Mr. Bolton's made a second to the motion. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We'll now open the public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing for both of these, but we'll choose whether we vote on them together or whether we do them separately. The same case, this is a case number, we'll open public hearing for case number Z24-13 and the PRD 24-01, which is the Bailey Agriculture development property called Sailor's Landing. Anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Okay. Ms. Boykin?
All right. This is a request for a rezoning and a PRD. The subject property is located in Planning District 22. It is located south of US Highway 98 and just west of County Road 94. Their proposed use is a 226-unit planned residential development. It is currently zoned RA, and the applicant is asking that most of the property be rezoned to RSF2. The total property area is 134 acres. They are planning 226 sites. With the RSF2 requested, the minimum lot area is 15,000 square foot with 80-foot wide lots. That is what is required of the RSF2, but with the PRD, they are allowed to go smaller. The density is 1.9 lots an acre. Here is the locator map of the subject property, and you can see it is surrounded by multiple zonings. You have M1, you have commercial zonings, you have RA zonings. Most of this area is agriculture, light industrial, and residential. This is their rezoning request. You can see the whole parcel outlined in yellow is currently zoned RA, and what is highlighted in kind of like a yellowish light green is what they are requesting to go to RSF2. For staff analysis, staff feels the requested change is compatible with the development patterns and the surrounding areas. You have your major, not major, but your commercial areas at the intersection, and as you go away from the intersection, you have less intense uses except for the industrial use to the west. Here is what the master plan is showing for this area. It does fall within a neighborhood center, and also there is mostly moderate development potential in this area. The related zoning districts for this is RSF1 and RSF2. Staff believes this rezoning request is consistent with the area, and here are the 10 factors that we considered. The only one we were not sure of is the adverse effect to traffic. They do not have to submit a traffic study with the PRD request. And this is the PRD review, and I'll let Sean go through the PRD part.
So to backtrack a little bit, just to talk about what we do have for this one. Utility providers, at this stage, we ask for letters, but we don't ask for capacity reports yet. That's something we do. If you approve the PRD, it would come back for preliminary plat review. At that point, we would actually get capacity letters. The traffic study, as Selena was mentioning, they aren't required for the PRD, but they actually did do one. They submitted one, and left and right turn lanes on 98 were recommended, and those are shown in one of the sketches later. A preliminary drainage plan, but not a full one. Wetland report was submitted. Flow tests and a fire letter have not been done yet, but will be done. So basically, all the big stuff we kind of save for the preliminary plat. This is more of a conceptual plan. Although we did go ahead and inform the school system and did not hear back from them. No opposition was expressed. So here's a layout, and it is rotated so that the north is on the left side of the page. So you can see, we were this a little bit during the work session. So the different lot sizes correspond. The 75 feet wide are the red diamonds, 60 feet wide are the blue squares, and then 50 feet wide are these circles here in the southern portion. So you can see the lot sizes. So they are smaller than required by the zoning, but the idea is that they would cluster them and then have amenities in the greater open space provided. Oh, another thing that's interesting, they're leaving this is agricultural. There's still someone who's going to be using that, and it would be accessed by this emergency or ingress egress to the south. Close up so you can see there's a walking trail proposed, and you can see some of the green areas that are labeled as parks, although no details were provided, and so I'll look at that when we talk about comments. Here are some renderings of potential house types based on what this developer has done in other places. So here's staff comments. Other than the walking trail and additional open space, no amenities were provided. And we did request that during the review session, because I know typically we do present big or more details about that at the Planning Commission meeting. So those have not been provided. And we were just throwing out some ideas, the idea that you would activate the park space by including amenities like playgrounds, dog parks, picnic areas, pavilions. I mean, there's a whole list of things that could go in those spaces, but to make them more of an amenity for local residents. I mentioned during the planning session that there are 2 entrances shown onto 98, and you can see the proposed turn lanes here on the easternmost entrance. And if those are not acceptable ALDOT, then this ingress-egress easement would have to be turned into a permanent full-service road. The landscape plan, we usually have a much more detailed landscape plan that has the spacing for the types, the different widths of buffers, the type of plants that would be in there, and the one we received was not adequate. So what we're proposing is that a landscape plan be provided that also includes the amenities. They can combine them into one plan, but we will not take it to the county commission until we have that in place. And then another thing, we have that large area that's shown as preserved for agricultural use. Some way to, some instrument, some conservation easement, or something that will be recorded to make sure that is actually maintained as agricultural use and not just a second phase. Here we did receive some feedback from the town of Alberta. They're concerned about traffic, and again, that will be addressed more fully at preliminary plat approval if you were to approve this. Traffic congestion, just based on some areas in the local area, impact on schools, police protection, concern about businesses, and they will address this because there's a parcel up on 98 that they have not rezoned yet, but that is proposed for business. So I think at least this concern will be addressed, that they will not eliminate all future business development there on 98. So the rezoning request, RA to RSF2, we recommended approval, and then for the PRD, we also recommended approval, but with the following conditions. Obviously, you have to approve the rezoning first, that ALDOT would approve 2 entrances, and then if not, that a second entrance would be provided down on County Road 95. A landscape plan that includes both the landscape details as well as the amenities. And 4, to activate proposed parks by including amenities that should be shown on the landscape plan. So those are the 2 different presentations. Do you have any questions?
I had a question on the agricultural portions.
Mm-hmm.
You just said that they needed to put a reservation on those parcels to last for how long? Are they locking this down to be always agriculture, or are they?
I guess what we're asking is more details about that, like some kind of a document that explains that. Like, and maybe it's just for 25 years or something, but we just need something so that we know the long-term intentions for that property. Because right now it's reserved as agriculture, and that is seen as, at this point, sort of one of the amenities that you would actually have a preservation of some farmland as part of this development. Because typically, if you do like a formal conservation easement through an organization like the Georgia Alabama Land Trust, those usually are perpetual, but there are some other types that are less permanent, but it's created by like a local provisions where you write something if you preserve it, and it could be, like I said, 20 years, 40 years. There are different ways of handling that, but we just want to know the details, like what are they proposing for that?
And, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, that portion of the property is not being rezoned. It's remaining RA, rural agriculture at this point, but it's just about more details about what is the long-term plans for that area that we're not even rezoning right now.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. On the plat, it just looks like it's stubbed out, and it shows arrows like in, like ingress and egress, so it's not part, they're,
It is part of the parcel. Like if you look at the yellow outline here, you can see the entire parcel, but the rezoning does not apply to that. So it is currently used for agricultural use, and they will continue to use it for agricultural use. And then the access to it is provided along that purple easement that you see on the drawing.
It's outside of the rezoning and the PRD, so it's just
Right.
remaining in the current
But
state.
it is part of the parcel.
Right.
So you're telling me when they come out with the subdivision, they will carve those pieces out and they will not be part of the PRD, right?
Potentially, yeah. And so, and obviously RA has a, 40,000 square foot minimum lot, so it's fairly large lots there. So if it were ever going to be a future phase or expansion of this development, it would likely have to go through rezoning anyway.
I recognize that this is a zoning case and that this is a conceptual idea of what would be there, but it gives me some concern that these two entrances come together very quickly inside this, and if you happen to live down in the full other end of this, there, and there was a major issue down there, several houses caught on fire, it seems like that you'd have some kind of a risk factor, and hopefully as we move into whether we approve a PRD or they do something else, I would suggest that we look at another entrance exit for that very reason.
Well, the purple one, the ingress egress easement, that will be, they could use that if in a case of emergency. So it does connect to 95 and will continue, but they don't necessarily have to fully build it out as a road, full right-of-way pavement width if the two entrances onto 90 are accepted by LDOT, but it would still function as an entrance. Like they still have access to that regardless of what happens on 98. But we're just saying that if 98 only were to have one, that this one, instead of just being this provisional sort of ingress egress easement, would have to be an actual road, fully functioning county approved road.
Just out of curiosity, so I know they didn't have to do a traffic study. Why not with a PRD?
Well, they did. In this case,
I know they
they
did, but why does a PRD not trigger a traffic study once it hits that 50 lot trigger like it would in any other subdivision?
Because it's a big expense, and so sometimes developers just kind of want to throw an idea out. Like, this is our concept. Do you like it? And if so, then we'll invest all the money in a full drainage plan and the traffic plan. But given all the trouble that we have here with things like drainage and traffic, developers typically will do it because it puts your mind at ease. It lets you know that they're at least thinking about it, they're looking ahead. So in this case, they didn't have to, but they did.
Okay. And that's something we can address when we do the next update to the subdivision regulations, because most applicants for PRDs do them anyway, so it's something we're going to consider making.
But they're not required to.
Right now, they're not required, but they did submit one.
That's all. I mean, to me, that's just, okay, thank you.
I have a concern, and it's really, I'm going to defer to Jay on how to deal with this. How are we supposed to weigh out the quote-unquote lack of opposition from the Baldwin County Board of Education, which in my time on the Planning Commission, there's been a single time that they have opposed a development, and that's because of the way Spanish Fort Elementary is configured. But I'm anticipating that when the public hearing gets going, we're going to hear a lot about overcrowded schools.
Right.
Which is not an untrue statement, because I live in Alberta.
Right.
But how are we supposed to weigh that out? I realize a lack of opposition is not tacit support, but neutrality may as well be. So how are we supposed to take into consideration a lack of development, a lack of opposition, yet there's going to be 25 people walk up here and tell us that schools are overcrowded, and the people that are running the schools don't seem to think that's an issue based on their lack of opposition. So how are we supposed to balance that?
Yeah, and that's definitely a tricky situation. Obviously, if there was a major concern, we would expect them to speak up. So the way it's being interpreted, the fact that they're not speaking up with a major outcry of, hey, we can't handle this at this time, we would consider they have some plans or making plans to address the school issue. The second part of that is these zoning cases, the way the zoning ordinance currently is, it doesn't really contemplate schools and school issue, capacities as one of the factors to consider. That's something we can look at in the future of maybe adding, because it's, it is definitely a concern, especially here in Baldwin County. But yeah, we have enough, those other factors that number 11 that we talked about, this is one of those other factors that we can consider. But yeah, we do communicate all of our developments through the Board of Education. And we would expect them, if they have a concern about not being able to address the school capacities during the build out of these developments. These developments take 10 years or so to build out, so it's not something that happens overnight. And we would think and hope they would be speaking up if they don't have a means of addressing it.
Unless it's Jubilee Farms that built out in 5 years when it was supposed to build out in 10. My second question is really for staff. I appreciate that we got feedback, from the town of Alberta. I was of two minds as to where exactly they stood. I appreciate the fire issue. I appreciate police. Just for the sake of argument, did they provide no feedback for the subdivision on 95 that's, just north of 98, right? It's just north of 98, right, to the east of County Road 95, that's going to have 100 and something houses in it.
Is that one Virgin, or was that annexed by Alberta? Does anybody know? Because I don't think we've reviewed that one. It might be.
Yeah, we did.
The one on 95.
Yeah, it's County Road 95, north of 98, and I'm just, just for the sake of consistency, I would be shocked if, they didn't get feedback for 110 houses, a year ago, but we're concerned about this one. I just want to make sure that if we're going to reach out to the towns, let's reach out to all of them and make sure if we don't get feedback from them, then I think it would be important to say, hey, we reached out to town of our brother, they didn't say anything.
Right, and this is our usual process. If it's adjacent or within a half mile, quarter mile, if it's fairly close, we do reach out.
All right, we have those signed up to speak, but I want to make sure everybody get your questions answered with staff first.
On the 11 things you read out at the beginning of the thing, on this page right here, number 5 and 6, 5 says adverse effect on the traffic, it's got a big question mark. And on the number 6 says it's consistent with a development pattern, got a red X. So how do you read, I just want to know, if it's so great, why are those marked?
Well, so, the very few rezonings will meet all of the factors. There's always some unknowns and things like that. So that, in this case, the adverse effects of traffic, because we don't have a plat and a full design of everything, that's kind of the next stage where we really get into the detailed technical review of that issue.
Well, that goes without saying, when you see all them houses, it's going to be a...
Right, and that's part of looking at the things that have been brought up tonight, the access points, the circulation, required off-site improvements, that's all kind of the next stage during the preliminary plat stage. And then so that's why it's kind of a question mark now, because basically we just haven't got to that stage of the development process yet. The number 6, with the consistent with development pattern, as staff mentioned earlier, that there is a variety of zones in the immediate area, anything from commercial uses to manufacturing uses. This is consistent with the master plan. It is in the neighborhood center, so the master plan did contemplate this style and intensity of development in the area. But basically, it hasn't been built that way yet. So when we look at the consistent with the development pattern, this is kind of on the front end of that pattern starting. But this isn't a use and what the master plan anticipated to happen in this area.
Okay.
I have a question. This is going to be 2 separate.
Yeah.
And with the PRD, we're asking to consider a PRD that has numerous issues that haven't even been addressed yet.
Well, we're going to do that. We haven't even let the engineer come up yet,
Okay.
so let me let him
Okay.
come up. So, any other questions for staff? Joe, I'm trying to get to you. All right, I'm going to ask Joe Rector, he's the engineer with the development. I'll let him come up and make his presentation, and then if you have questions for him, I'm sure he'll be glad to answer those.
Thank you. One thing, Mr. Pumphrey, I'm not the engineer. I'm the planner on the project. Jeff Mullins and Todd Wheeler will be the engineer of records. Ricky Sears is the land survey of record. So just want to make sure. I'm not claiming to be the engineer on this project. So as staff had talked about here on this, there's a few things I want to kind of jump back here real quick and kind of start at the beginning of the process. Whenever this project was initially brought in, it was submitted for a pre-app back December, January. It was originally just proposed as going in and doing a rezoning, having a subdivision laid out on it. We had a plan that actually showed, there was a map shown earlier that showed the existing zoning in the area and the intersection, and showed how that, if we go back to that map, right? And so the one in the corner here where it shows 2024, the original plan we had here showed that we were going to propose some of that was consistent with M1 or whatever there is to the west, and the pink and red to the east. And if you look, the orange that Mr. Seibert here referred to here was where up on the east side north there, where there is a RSF4, I believe, that got approved and is being constructed there on that side. So we were originally going to just submit something like that. When we did, we got some guidance that was not the desire, to have just the cookie cutter type thing, and try to come up with something better that had some more character to it. So we've gone back and we tried to take the comments and the visioning plan and the various different components there and compile something together that gave that central feel to the, can we go to the layout for a second, please? That gives the, a central feel there where that roundabout in the center, those are close to 2-acre parks on each side. So you're talking about, there's a roundabout that's got 8 acres of a park, an amenity that, yes, we don't have the pool houses and all that stuff designed at this stage, because one of the things, this is a, can we click one back? One's got, the data table there. So as this stated, we originally had 300 lots laid out on this thing, and then as we come back and we start adding amenities, adding the open space, adding the ponds, setting out this agricultural space, we end up down to 226 lots. But the important part, if you notice, the amount of proposed impervious, the site to sites is only 32 acres of impervious. Well, we're proposing provided open space of 38 acres. So we're proposing open space outside of the wetlands and the others that's in more than the amount of impervious that we're proposing on the site. And so that's kind of one of the things when you start clustering these, that you get an advantage of that. Initially, you go, I don't like small lots, okay? But if you have these large lots that you go in there and we put in a big grid, people are going to go out there and stake their fence and do their thing, and they're going to have these big lots, and the whole thing is going to be wide open, cleared, just rectangular lots. And this provides you the opportunity to keep it to where it's compacted in there, and it's got some defined amenities that we were having landscape architects put together an extensive plan that's going to have all of that. If this was a 25-lot subdivision, it was small, and I could show you one amenity that was a pool house, I would have already done that, but this was 134 acres. It's going to have multiple amenities and a series of trails that all connect them. So our plan was to have all that fleshed out and defined as a part of the next step, preliminary plat, all that, where we'd have to individually, each one of these as they come through, have all that worked out in there. So that was just wanted to kind of mention that, and also then not kind of just forget about that 40-acre parcel there of that agricultural. That was something that was added that could have very easily just cut it out and said, hey, we're not going to make it part of this, but there was a specific area in that visioning plan that said there was an objective to, when we do projects like this, to try to protect and retain and preserve some of the agricultural. So we thought this was a great opportunity here to be able to do that. Let's put a preserve in there and preserve, try to develop the land, get the development out of it that we can get, provide the amenities, but also provide the preservation too, and try to accomplish that as a part of the goal as well. So there's a lot of those pieces that went into this over since January to now, kind of getting down to 226, because, we could have tried to squeeze in 250 because the numbers calculate out to that, but we're not even trying to maximize that. It's just the 226 fit. And to address like the access points, we talked about that road currently now. They're driving farming equipment, the tractors. It's been being used for years. It's a heavily used, heavy implement road. We've done these in other parts of the county. There's one now that's down off County Road 10. It's a county road that we had a process we went through that has got a same kind of gravel bedded fire truck access lane in there that's on Grun Lane. On County Road 10, it'd be a similar kind of situation here. So it's something we have done, and it's not without precedent in the county. And then the other thing that was mentioned earlier was concern about the front and rear setbacks. We picked for this at the time just the industry standard 25-foot front and rear setbacks because that's on typical homes this size. That's what it is. Another county's default, if you don't have zoning, is 30-foot. So do we have a problem with that? And if we need to do 30-foot front and rear, we would be fine with that because the depth's not as concerning as it is the width. So that's the main things I wanted to kind of touch on. We have the room to be able to adjust some of those things there like that. And, the access points, like we said here to this stub, I think it was mentioned earlier too. That was something that staff had asked, would we be willing to do so that they could maintain access to get in there and farm that property and have, have a designated point there if they needed to get in there for any reason. So that was why it was added. If we don't want it, we can take it out, and they can continue to use the access point down the south where they go now. So that was the things I wanted to just touch on. If you had any other additional questions or anything, I'll be happy to answer anything I can.
I have a question on the agricultural preservation area. Do y'all have an amount of years that will remain that way?
So it hadn't been determined for certain yet.
Right.
That's part of this process of putting that in some kind of a conservation easement, what that looks like exactly, and let the execution of that be over that time period.
Thanks.
Joe, how do you address, I know City of Alberta, Town of Alberta brought it up, and then I think Ms. Burnett, you've mentioned it before. In regards to these small lots, you got a picture of a proposed house with the front garage, 25-foot setbacks. If they built to that, you're going to have a couple of parking spaces out in the driveway, but how are you going to handle what we all know will happen? It's not going to be just 2 cars per family. There's going to be 3 or 4 cars or guests. What do you do with these small lots, no place on the lots to park? I've seen where actually parking lots are provided, and I say a parking lot, I mean a row of parking spaces are provided in a general area to give people a place. Have you guys have even thought about that?
That's not something that hasn't ever been done on anything that like this before, where you have, like, if you have an amenity area, there's a few extra guest parkings and stuff like that are there, and this one's obviously got the opportunity to do that. As I mentioned, if the desire is to scoot the front setback back further, we have the ability to do that as well. If there is a number that's the desired number for that, if we just know what that number is, we can either say, yes, we can accomplish that. Because like I say, we're showing 140-foot depth on a lot. If it needs to be a 30, if the answer is a 35-foot front setback and a 20-foot rear setback, that still leaves us the same dimensions in the middle, and it's just pushed back from the street further, and it gets you the 35 feet plus the additional out to the.
Well, that's almost going to be something you guys need to address. To me, if that's your answer to your parking issue, I think, and I could take you to a subdivision I know in Silver Hill that is, has small lots. What they do, they park the two faces on the driveway, they park 2 cars on the grass, and they park cars out on the road.
So does
And I can take you to that subdivision, and it's in Silver Hill of all places. You know, it's not.
So does the additional distance?
I'm just saying, you're going to have a lot more cars when you have smaller lots and there's no place to put them.
So would the additional distance help in
all over
Silver Hill?
Yeah, if you go deeper now, that's why I said you guys either need, if you think,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't want to be the only one that speaks to this, but if somebody else has got an issue, you know, all I know is throw the issues out, and you guys need to figure out how to resolve them.
That's a resolution there to make the front setbacks deeper to accommodate what.
Go ahead, Diane.
Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
How wide are the streets? The roads?
The right-of-ways?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, the asphalt, how about that?
well, the asphalt, so, again, that's,
Okay.
so on the typical street there, you see that they're 50-foot right-of-ways, which they're 24-foot asphalt paved, or whatever the exact dimension from the back edge of the pavement to pavement. But that front one is a boulevard section coming in, so it's a wider right-of-way. It's 36 feet of asphalt or whatever up for a distance down to that first turn section there, so it varies a little bit.
Well, typically, people park in the street when there's not enough parking. And if you have 2 cars on either side, you can't get through the street. So the additional parking will be helpful. I don't know the number, but I was looking, just want to make a comment. R2 has certain standards. So with your PRD, the 30-foot setback is required in all residential zoning districts, and except what changes, I think, it's 30 feet from RSF1 to RMF6. Doesn't change. In the whole zoning ordinance, it's always 30 feet. And then the 60-foot width lot is only allowed in a multifamily. There's not even a 50-foot lot allowed, and a majority of your lots, 89 of them, are 50 feet.
Yeah, so that's the purpose of the PRD process. We have a project that's under construction right now here in Baldwin County that came through this process. That is several hundred acres that we had rezoned to RSF2 and have 50-foot lots going on it right now on the corner of County Road 54 and 64. That's subdivision that's 300 and some odd lots that was a PRD that was approved. And the purpose of it is
Doesn't mean we liked it.
but it still meets the criteria of the rules that was set for the county, and so that's
Not
what.
really.
Yeah, it actually does, because
Well-
if you read what a PRD is, it's nothing, it's not about that, it's
I
the
know.
underlying zoning that gets
But
the
it
density.
takes a vote of this body
understand.
to approve it, and we're realizing what those developments really are.
But I'm just saying, it is the way we have it drawn, is the way that the code says, though. It is the way that the code
So,
says.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so the PRD process, just for clarity, is an overlay district, basically. So your density is governed by your underlying zoning district, which in this case is proposed to be RSF2. The PRD is an overlay that allows the applicant to request a variation from lot sizes or any of the area and dimensional requirements, but they cannot exceed the underlying density. And kind of to offset those requirements, they have to provide more open space and more park and activity space than a typical subdivision would do. So the idea would be something where you would have, you may have smaller lots and different area and dimensional standards for the lots, but you gain larger neighborhood open space and other, neighborhood amenities by doing a non-traditional subdivision. So the PRD does contemplate requesting of smaller lot sizes and smaller setbacks, understanding that if, those requests do function as in the greater good of the neighborhood. So the parking, for instance, the parking request, they can either provide additional setback. Part of the PRD request could be, instead of doing additional setback, they could do on-street parking and have a different street section that could accommodate those parking. This applicant has not given any details on anything like that, so the setback was the only issue we can do. But just to clarify, the whole purpose within the zoning ordinance of the PRD is to have that overlay to basically have more area on the developments preserved and not have it completely full of lots and have more neighborhood amenities, almost as a offset for whatever area dimensional relaxations they're asking for. But it does have to go through this board and through the county commission. So Ms. Burnett, you're correct about that.
And Jay, with that, I get that. I agree with everything you said, except that when you're allowed to do something smaller, then there are complications that come along with that need to be compensated for, which I think is some of the things we're raising here. Maybe we can't do anything about 50-foot wide lots because the PRD allows it, but the 50-foot lots create an issue that needs to be addressed. I think the magnitude of the development, to me, 200-something lots, that's a good-sized community. A lot of kids in that community. I've brought it up in work session. I appreciate, Joe, what you said about you got a landscape plan, they're working on it, but for me in a PRD, if you're going to ask for the 50-foot lots and you're showing us 50-foot lots, then you need to also show us the amenities. I want to see what you're doing to make what the regulations say, it's got to be usable space. I want to see what makes it usable, and I want to know where it's at. I mean, you got a lot of green space around, but they're behind lots, there are pockets here and there. And it is kind of hard, like you said, we're probably missing scale here, and I get that. But I think to help us with that, I would really like to see a blow-up of where you're going to put your amenities and what they're going to involve to make it usable, other than putting a picnic table and a swing set that you buy from Sears, or, I just dated myself, I said Sears, from wherever, Walmart, to me is not the kind of amenities we're talking about. You want nice playgrounds, you want pavilions, you want things to me that are usable for the community. Exactly. So those are the things I'd like to see on the plan that I don't see, but that's my point.
And this map with the scan or whatever, the coloration on it's not depicting because the parks are colored and depicted differently than just the regular open space. There's
Ultimately,
10 acres of the parks, the front roads that have access, that are the parts that we're talking about that are going to be, the actual amenities that are not just the green space behind lots and everything.
I mean, Joe, ultimately what we're dealing with on this, the way this looks right now, I feel like I can make a very cogent argument that your conceptual PRD is incomplete. And frankly, I'd have a very, very difficult time, voting on what is ostensibly an incomplete application for this part of the process. If you want to talk about RSF2, I don't have a huge issue with a 15,000 square foot lot, all right? But I got a real issue with, we're going to give you 6,500, 6,700 square foot lots, and I see nothing on here that justifies that, other than you've pointed out where the walking trail is going to be. I realize if this got submitted in January, we might need to talk to our landscape guy that's supposed to be doing all these amenities that, we're 6 months in, we don't have a plan yet. So that's the issue, and I probably am saying the same thing Mr. Pumphrey did. This concept is incomplete, and I don't have enough information to be able to vote on that part of it.
I agree with Mr. Seibert. With a PRD, we're setting in stone what it's going to be moving forward, and we don't have enough information to put in stone. We have four items comments from staff that haven't been addressed, plus the 30-foot setback. Is it going to be that? Is it going to be something else?
Do you have the report?
There's way too many.
Do you have the report that was submitted with the project too, though, that had our explanation of what we were going to do on the project? I was wondering.
It should be in the public folder.
Yeah, we submitted a report that was a full report that was several pages that has a lot of the stuff that we had. I mean, we had
I appreciate that. I want to see it. I want to see what this is
We
going
did,
to.
we submitted it, part of the plan. It's the report
But
and the drawing.
Joe, I appreciate that. I don't want part of the plan. Because
I don't
want to vote on part of the plan.
Okay.
I want to see what's going to happen. If we're going to give you 7,000 square foot lots, that there's going to be 4 cars on a 50-foot right-of-way, I want to see what it's going to look like. That's the bottom line, because it is a trade-off, by allowing this to happen. And the county needs to see what they're going to get out of it.
So we have not seen the report that came with the plan. Is that what we're saying, I guess?
Again, I just want to reiterate what I mentioned to staff about the way this egress and ingress is done, where it comes together. And when you think about that boulevard having a median in the middle of it, and again, you go back to the lower end of the development, I think that you all should, as a suggestion, as you develop these plans, I think you ought to look at that and figure out a better way to open that up so that there's not that kind of a conflict in case of an emergency.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Rector? We've got some folks that have signed up to speak. I'm going to call on them, but I'll give you. Joe, you got anything else?
Nope.
Okay, Scott Feely.
Good evening. Is it on? Good evening. I'm Scott Feely. I live in Alberta. My objection, or maybe more concern, would be that I'm the farmer that farms 3/4 of the way around that property. Linear feet, it's about 4,620 feet, almost a full mile. I've been farming since I was 21 years old. I've been in court about 10 times over this. I have a restricted use pesticide license and I use it. I hire the crop duster constantly. I farm peanuts, and apparently every 3rd child in America has a peanut allergy now. That's my concern. Can you see it? We own 100 acres of land there. Straight across the street from us, Alberta just put a ballpark up. We're already catching flack over that through the community. There hasn't been nothing put in court yet. But we hear the chatter, we hear the talk. When the peanut combine's running, the dust is flying, guess who the butthole is? These are my concerns. And you're going to put a 226 home, single-family residence. Again, 4,620 feet. I farm around that place. And on a personal note, somebody who's been born and raised here, lived here all their life, it makes me sick to my stomach to watch all this good farmland disappear. A lot of people don't realize this. We have some of the best farmland in the country. 70% of the sod grown in the entire southeast comes out of Baldwin County, and there's a reason for it. You go 10 miles that way, nothing. About 70 miles that way, nothing. You go about 50 miles north, nothing. You can't do it. That power line, that right-of-way they keep talking about, that's a power line right-of-way. When I was 10 years old, I wrecked my motorcycle on that power line. Compound fracture. I had to pick myself up and go, or it would have been hours before they find me. That's not something you're going to drive a Cadillac down. That's a rough road. I take my tractors down there every day, or through there every day. We have to putt, or we're going to tear up equipment. It's full of holes, potholes. We try to maintain it. We try to fix it. But again, my biggest concern is I'm the neighboring farmer. You're talking about putting a lot of kids in there. I got kids too, I understand. That concerns me. But I got to make a living. I'm not going to stop doing what I do. Thank you. You got any questions?
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Amy Paskowski? I apologize if I didn't say it right.
Okay. My name is Dr. Amy Paskowski,
And I have owned and practiced, my street address is 27640 US Highway 98. So I'll get to where we are on that map there you had. Just a second. Okay. So I've owned and practiced small animal veterinary medicine at Alberta Animal Hospital for 27 years, which is located directly across Highway 98, almost, to where this subdivision is proposed. I own 13 acres there, which is currently farmed, a sublease to a farmer, and they're currently growing peanuts on that property. So my home for the past 26 years is approximately about 2.5 acres with an in-ground pool, is directly adjacent to the proposed Sailor's Landing development. I live there with my husband of 25 years and my son and daughter, who are both college students. I like to go on record as in opposition of this development. Of course, it would be, economically advantageous, for the community and for the people to provide home ownership opportunities if they're going to be home ownership and not, say, long-term leasing. However, I do have concerns like everyone else. If you go to that other, the big schematic, I'll show you exactly where my property is. It's about like I said, 2.5 acres.
Is it this one?
No, the whole
No.
development picture.
Oh, the one of the close-up of the development.
There you go. That white square, that's my
This one
2.5
right here?
acre. Yep. That is me. So I've been there 26 years. If I wanted to move into a subdivision, I would have moved to a subdivision 26 years ago. So the first thing is, of course, is the traffic. It's an obvious concern for public safety. I've lived directly off Highway 98 for 26 years. Approximately 3 years ago, my son, who was 17 at the time, he got rear-ended driving into my driveway. His car was totaled. He was not at fault, and most importantly, he was not severely injured. However, my husband and I both have had several close calls trying to turn left into my driveway and into my business parking lot. We nervously look in the rearview mirror. Are we going to get rear-ended? Is everybody going to see us and stop behind us? There have been several fender benders and several close calls of drivers going into the ditch to avoid us. So that's definitely a safety concern. People have been killed right there, right in front on that highway. The speed limit is an issue. It's a 2-lane highway, 55 miles an hour. You have deceleration lane. What are you going to have there? Not to mention the speed and frequency of emergency vehicles coming up and down the highway. Police, fire, emergency. Lillian's right down the road, up and down that road. There's no other way to get there. So one way to get there. Specific concerns I have as they pertain to my property.
You'll have to, that's all we can do. I got to go to the next
I
one.
have 7 houses, 3 on the side, 4 on the back. I'm just asking for some buffer.
All right.
May I please?
No, I have to stop. I have to go to the next person. I'm sorry.
I'd like to have some just a buffer, some fencing, natural barriers, something.
Okay.
7 homes in my backyard.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
for your time.
Brian Bodway? I'm sorry to have to cut folks off. We have 3 minutes, though. That's the...
Yeah, my name's Brian Bodway. I've lived in the town my whole life. My concerns with it's going to be the traffic that it's going to cause, because that area is congested bad anyhow. And our volunteer fire department. We don't have a fire department. We have volunteers. And the amount of subdivisions you're putting in our area, the one right up the street from it, the one on the other end by the VFW, you're putting them everywhere. Who's going to take care and look after them? Because a volunteer fire department can't look after a house and place of that magnitude. Just like Stephen was talking about, the streets going in there. I deliver sod for a living. I've been to most every neighborhood from here all the way to Panama City every day. Yeah, it's okay for me to go knock on somebody's door and ask them to move their car. That fire department ain't gonna have time to ask them to move the vehicles to get the fire truck in there. It doesn't work that way. The neighborhoods are small. You won't be able to hardly get a big truck through there to turn it, with the way they're proposing and laying it out. But the more and more people you keep adding to our area, we don't have the resources for it. We don't have the volunteer fire department, the police department. Just like a few years ago when the hurricane was supposed to go into Louisiana, Sandy, and ended up coming this way. What if you've got a subdivision that size as a tornado hits it? Where are you going to get the first responders to rescue that many people? You figure at least 3 people per house, and most of them. That's a lot of folks. And we're already stretched thin in Baldwin County, at least on our end. We're not in Orange Beach, and we're not in Gulf Shores or Foley. They have paid fire departments. Alberta doesn't. It's always been a mom and pop, small farming community. And the farming's going to the wayside because we keep granting people like this permission to make more subdivisions by rezoning the land. That's just my objection to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nick, I hope you know who you are, because I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name. I won't try. I'm going to let you do it.
I'll do mine. My name is Nick Knopfline. I live at 1265 County Road 95. I'm a bordering landowner. On that plaque, the larger stormwater pond, the skinnier of the two to the left, that's my property there. And one concern of mine is, like during Sally, that ground out there is flat. I mean, we have almost have a water issue already. The only way I know to make that water drain away from those houses is to build that up and push it to the neighboring properties. Well, during Sally, I had water about that far from getting in my house as it is right now. So that's a concern of mine. And then everyone talks about traffic, and they're looking at traffic right here at these entrances, which is a major problem. I don't know if anybody's driven by Alberta Elementary School at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You can't get through there. It's backed up all the way into town. So you go add 260 houses in there too, with 3, 4 cars per house. You know, 98's 2-lane, 95's a 2-lane. It's not possible for that kind of, and you're putting 100 houses just north of there, as Mr. Seibert was talking about, not even a half a mile up the road, north of 98. So the infrastructure, we're just not there in any aspect. Police, law enforcement, fire department, as he was talking about. We have one small family doctor in Alberta. I mean, you go, you'll sit there for an hour and a half to give blood, simple stuff. How are we going to have medical stuff for 265 more houses? So I could go on for days. I only got 3 minutes, but I think everybody kind of gets the idea here. I can't speak for all the other landowners around there, but I don't know, I'm sure there's a plan for that stormwater pond, but I'd like to see where that's going to go. I mean, during the event like Sally, I mean, typical rainstorm, it's fine, but major 30 inches in 24 hours, where's that going to go because of this on other people? If you got a plan and it works, great, but if not, then what? How are we going to handle that for me and, everybody else that may be affected by that? So anyway, thank y'all.
Okay. All right, that's all we had signed up to speak on that, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Does anybody have any other questions before I explain our options on the motion? Okay. So we have 2 items. Of course, one of the options is, and these are recommendations to the county commission. So you can make a recommendation to the county commission that the rezoning be approved and the PRD as presented be approved. Or you can make a recommendation that the rezoning be approved and take separate action on the PRD of your choice, whether it's to deny or whether it's to table, whether it's, or as I said earlier, to recommend approval. So anybody wants to talk it out? If you're prepared to make a motion for us to consider, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if we were to deny the PRD, when would they be able to come back with a second application for the PRD?
So that's a zoning action, so they could not apply for another PRD for a year. This is a little bit of a tricky situation where we have 2 zoning actions on the table. But if you treated them as separate items, which they can be treated that way, they would not be able to reapply for the PRD for 1 year. For 1 year.
not to lead the commission on what to do, but, and I have no problem with the rezoning, and the PRD is just, I think Greg probably put it best. I think it's just, in my opinion, it's incomplete. I have no problem giving the applicant time to bring back something that addresses a lot of the issues that have been addressed, that have been presented tonight. So tabling would be in order for that, but that's just me. I don't make the motions. You guys have to.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we would need to ask the applicant to request to be tabled to the notification requirement, which you can do that.
I'm making a motion we deny the
All right, first, let's do this. First off, unless you're wanting to do them together, I'm going to entertain a motion on the zoning.
That's what I was going to
Unless you're going to ask that to be tabled too, but if you're getting ready to make a motion.
I'll make a motion we deny the rezone.
All right, this is a recommendation to the county, so you're going to make a motion that we recommend to the county commission that we deny the rezoning? Okay. Mr. Bolton's made a motion that we make a recommendation to the county commission to deny the motion request for rezoning. Excuse me, I'm getting those tied up there. All right, Mr. Bolton made the motion. To have a second? All right, motion fails due to lack of a second.
I'm sorry, I heard you say that you got a second.
I do not.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to make a recommendation to deny the rezoning request by Mr. Bolton and Ms. Burnett. You're seconding that motion? Is that right? You're seconding? Okay.
Yes.
All right, any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
All right, roll call. A yes vote is in agreement to the request to recommend denial. A no is just the opposite.
Mr. Davis? Mr. Mullick?
No.
Mr. Seibert?
Opposed.
Mr. Boer?
Yes.
Ms. Stratiger?
No.
Ms. Burnett? Mr. Fletcher? Mr. Bolton? Mr. Waters? Mr. Key?
So the motion fails?
The motion fails.
Right. All right. So the motion to recommend a denial to the county commission has been denied. So I need another motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the rezoning of RA to RSF2 to the county commission.
Okay, so we have a motion now to approve, or recommend approval. Do you have a second?
Second.
Who was that?
No, I think we tied.
Mr. Fletcher? All right, so now we have a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning request. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Oh. Is that 2 noes? I'm not going to do a roll call. That motion carries. All right, so that's the rezoning request. So what do you want to do with the PRD?
I'd like to see if the applicant would like to table it until they can refine their PRD.
Okay.
But for how long?
Good. All right. So with that, do you want to make that motion, Mr. Fletcher?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make that motion to have the applicant table it till the next meeting.
Second.
Mr. Fletcher's made the motion to table, and Mr. Booyer
Yeah.
has seconded the motion.
I have a question. Is 30 days enough? Or do we need to make that 60? I mean, it's a question.
He stated it was enough, so.
That would be up to the applicant, but if he has enough time to provide additional information on the park space and parking requirements, then we can review it, yeah.
Is 30 days enough that you believe, or, okay?
Do we need to be specific about the tabling as to what we're asking more information on? Or is discussion good enough, or?
I think the discussion is good enough. I don't think it has to be specific on, I believe the applicant.
Maybe I should ask Mr. Rector,
Yeah.
are you? And anything else, Joe, you heard as concerns? Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor that's a recommendation to, or a motion to table this item, and I have a second. Any questions?
That's, it'll be longer than 30 days, till the next meeting.
Till the next meeting?
Yes.
Sounds good. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, we ready to continue on? Does anybody need to take a break? Move on? Oh, quick, all right, I've had some need to take a break, so take 5 minutes. I will now open the public hearing for case number Z24-15, the Swenson property. Does anybody need to clear prior communication on this item? Ms. Bates?
Okay, this is located in Planning District 12. The applicant is asking to rezone 3.96 acres from RSF2 to B3. The property is located off of State Highway 59 and Rawls Road. Rawls Road is a paved and county-maintained road, and State Highway 59 is maintained by the state. The applicant is Smith Clark and Associates LLC, Hunter Smith, and the owner is Peter Swenson. The proposed zoning is B3, General Business District. All the factors was met except for the proposal to conform to the master plan. The master plan showed CR, conservation resource. The property to the north is zoned residential single family 3 and vacant. The property to the south is zoned residential single family 3 and has a residence on it. To the east, you have B4, major commercial, B3, general business, and RA, which is commercial and vacant. And to the west, you have an RSF3 and being used as residential. Unless information to the contrary is revealed at the public hearing, staff feels that this application should be recommended for approval. And I can go back to any slide or proceed if needed, answer any questions.
All right, anybody have any questions for Crystal? Okay. Then I'll call up those that have signed up. Hunter Smith. Okay. Hunter's representing the applicants. Anybody have any questions for him? Okay, and I had one signed up in opposition, Heather Casablanc.
Okay, my name is Heather Casablanc. I live at 16901 Halo Court in Loxley. My property backs this property. And while I get that there are other businesses around, they're all vacant. And I mean, it's a residential area. To me, there's no need for a business to be put in a little bitty area. Even though there is part of the frontage on 59, the majority is on Rouse Road. And the majority of the areas you could see around is all residential. And I don't want a Dollar General in my backyard in 5 years if that's what's going to happen. So I'm just here to oppose it. And thank you for listening, and have a good day.
Thank you. All right, it's the only person I had signed up to speak, so I'm going to close the public hearing. All right, any questions for staff?
So, yeah, I've got a question. So if it goes to business B3 and there's homes adjacent to this property, what's the buffer zone that they have to provide between these two properties?
It's 25 feet. And they would have to come back in here for a CSP review at that time. Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions?
Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong, but B3 is relatively intense, isn't it?
It's general business.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking if we rezone this B3, I mean, is in 5 years, instead of a Dollar General, is it going to be an airport?
No, sir. Not an airport.
Okay.
Here's a list of the permitted uses underneath the B3 zoning.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you pull up the map,
Yes.
the zoning map? Thank you.
The locator.
The only way to enter this parcel is on 59, is that correct?
Correct.
No, there's a side street.
I see it now.
Right,
Yeah.
so they could, and it's probably very likely that the AlDOT would not let them access directly to 59 because of that.
So, the entrance would be on Rawls Road?
I mean, it's to be determined, the site plan would direct that, but given the property's location, it's most likely going to have to come off that side street.
And the B3 is triggered because of the warehouse? Is that right? Could they do it in a B2?
Well, we're just looking at the rezoning at this point.
Yeah, this is just a zoning, so if you look at, this is, obviously, even though it's kind of an intersection of a side street, this is along the Highway 59 corridor, which does have a lot of intense, commercial uses along what you would expect on a major arterial like that. The B3 is consistent with kind of the commercial pattern of development and zoning in that area.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the rezoning request.
So this is a recommendation of the county commission to approve the rezoning, correct? And Mr. Bolton seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, this time I'm going to open the public hearing for case number Z24-16, which is the Creekwood LLC property. Does anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Boykin?
All right. All right, this is a request to rezone about 16 acres from RSF3 to RSF4. Here is the factors that we considered when writing our staff report. Here is the locator map, and the subject property is highlighted in blue. You can see a lot of it is RSF3 in the area. To the north is BCZ, which is base community zoning, and then you have multiple commercial districts around the intersection. Staff has recommended going from RSF3 to RSF4. Here is a picture of the subject property. Here are the adjacent properties. Here are the agent comments that we received. For the RSF3, the requirements is 10,000 square foot lots. For the proposed RSF4, they would be 7,500 square foot lots. The subject property is located within a neighborhood center of the master plan. And you can see on the map there are some moderate development in the area and also rural agriculture. The proposed Planning District 39 was zoned just last year in February, and the advisory committee worked on the local provisions, and in the local provisions, they included major activity nodes throughout the district. The subject property does fall within this quarter-mile buffer for the major activity node. It doesn't include the whole parcel, but as stated in the local provisions, when a parcel intersects the distance boundary, only the parcel area within 500 feet of the boundary shall be permitted for proposed rezoning. That is why the applicant is asking only for part of the larger parcel to be rezoned to RSF4. And as stated earlier, staff has recommended approval for this rezoning.
Okay, questions for staff?
I have a question.
Okay.
I didn't see the little checkoff thing for this,
That was at the beginning. Let me go back.
the little boxes.
There you go.
Okay, I didn't find them in my, it's okay. That's all right. I don't see where this is consistent with the surrounding area. The development pattern, they're all residential, they're all R3.
Correct.
There is some commercial, thank you, and some other, but not any higher density than R3 residential. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's no RSF4 in the area. Keep in mind, it does fall within that activity node, and that is only where RSF4 is allowed within that planning district.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure, let me go back to the chart that we have. If you look at the chart below, Planning District 39 created some activity nodes, and in those nodes, only certain zonings, if somebody wanted to rezone, only certain ones could be applied for. So RSF4 is permitted within this quarter mile from this intersection, which is 32 and 181.
Okay. But it doesn't encompass the entire property.
That's correct, but that statement I had that's below it, it is allowed to go out 500 feet from that buffer.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Where is the school located across from that property?
It's just north of it on the other side of County Road 32.
It's directly across
Yes.
the street. It's not shown on here anywhere. That's the reason I ask.
You can probably see it. There's a picture, and then also you should be able to see it on the site map. Go back to the picture.
Okay, any other questions?
Selena, does the applicant own that entire parcel?
I believe so, yes. It's one large parcel. They're just asking for 16 acres of it to be rezoned.
But they don't have to subdivide it?
No, they do not. You can have multiple zonings on one parcel.
Thank you.
They just have to provide a legal description of the area being rezoned.
All right.
And I have a question. Is what is proposed, all of that is encompassed within the quarter mile plus the 500 feet? Is that kind of what makes this an irregular boundary?
Correct.
On the western edge?
Yes,
So we are all within that 500 feet?
that's correct. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if you read on H, there is no RSF4, you're correct, in the area, but it was encouraged that you have RSF3, RSF4, B3, and B4 districts shall be clustered at major activity nodes to reduce the spread of traffic congestion throughout the district and lessen the overall burden of commercial development and higher intensity residential development on infrastructure.
So when you look at the compatibility, and this is kind of, and if you were on, you're the chairman of that, the zoning committee, that's kind of what these neighborhood nodes were contemplated to do, is cluster your more intense uses near major intersections and transition to less intense uses as you get further away from those intersections. And that's how the quarter of a mile. So when you look at the compatibility of the development pattern, even on that zoning map that's on the screen right there, you have a lot of commercial uses right there in the intersection as the district was designed to do. And as you work out of that commercial center, you want to step down your intensity of uses where it's more intense residential to less intense residential as you get further away from that. So that is kind of why that provision, that local provision is there.
That's all good, but the driveway and the entrance is going to be further down.
Right, and yeah.
Right by the school.
Yeah, the subdivision, that would be another process. So the subdivision design itself, this is just a zoning and land use application at this point.
So we don't look ahead, we just talk about what we're talking about now.
We look at how this meets
That's a hell of a way to run an
meets
outfit.
the requirements of the rezoning ordinance, yes.
Sounds like government to me.
Any other question?
I've got a question. So this applies, this is a rezoning, so we don't know what's intended to go there, and it's not to be asked right now.
And it's not to be asked right now, but I'm just wondering, when a plan is proposed for that piece of property, should it be rezoned, has it been made clear, and it will be made clear at some point, what the future land use will be or is defined as there, to meet the needs of the community? It lays out what we were just describing earlier. The subdivision patterns, the amenity-based communities, small gardens, parks, playgrounds, that's going to happen at that point. Not to be addressed now, but is it made clear, whoever might be wanting, to subdivide or rezone these properties, at some point, they'll have to conform to that.
That's correct. Part of the subdivision process is meeting the details of the design standards of our subdivision regulations, which addresses a lot of those issues. At this point, when you're looking at zoning cases, you're looking at what is the proposed zone? Is it compatible with the adjacent uses? Does it conform to our, what was envisioned in the master plan and the local provisions of the zoning district, the planning district? And then once this would allow them to do single-family development with a minimum lot size of, whatever the area dimensional requirements are. I think it's 7,500 square feet and whatever the setbacks are. The details of the layout, the traffic circulation, any required traffic or on-site or off-site improvements, that's all part of the next step that goes beyond this. So at the zoning stage, it is merely looking at the factors that we're presenting to you today, how it conforms with that with the zoning ordinance and the anticipated uses of the area.
Okay, thanks.
Could you go back to the slide that has the pictures on it of the surrounding area? Or surrounding, yes. If you look in the one at the upper left, which is the school across the street, if you notice in the center right of that particular picture, you see a police car. The reason that police car is there is every morning he's stopping, or she is stopping traffic to let people come and go on that road already. And while we may be looking at a zoning case here, we are the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's clear as the nose on your face that we have a situation where they're going to build houses over there. Whether they build threes or fours, that's not really at issue here. And to me, to subject that area for health, safety, and welfare with that many more families, that many more children, some of which will go to the school across the street, just doesn't make any sense, to me anyway, of doing this, and to take advantage of our opportunity here seems to be a better way to approach this than waiting until we can't say much once we get to the subdivision decisions.
Jamie?
I had a question. You said that this is 16 acres of a larger parcel. What's the total acreage of the rest of the parcel? Do you know, or is anybody approximate? I didn't see it in there.
I believe it was around 38, sorry.
38 total acres? And if this were to be approved for RSF4 for that portion, then it will stop there, or is there an opportunity for, now there's precedent and we're adjacent to RSF4, so we can come and get the next little piece?
No, the local provisions of that planning district would not allow that RSF4 to be expanded.
Thank you.
Okay,
I have one other question.
okay.
On page 121 of your little pamphlet here, number 5, it says, without knowing how many lots were proposed, it's uncertain that the proposed change would affect the current traffic patterns. Suggestion and traffic study would need to be determined to impact the traffic congestion. So that means we know they're going to build houses. They wouldn't ask for a change if they were not going to build houses. I mean, if it's hard, I'm not opposed to building houses on it the way it is, what is planned. But every time we come up here, we listen to people want to change something so they can get more stuff in the smaller package. It's all about money. Then they run the neighborhood and they go to some other county and run their neighborhood and leave the trash here for us. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. We've got several signed up, so I'm not cutting you off because you'll have opportunity to speak again, but let's get to those that have signed up, and I'm going to start with Ms. Marnett, who represents the applicant. You want to come up? That'd be fine. All right, Haley Gregorius. And Haley, we've got your packet that you sent in, so everybody should have a copy of a letter from Haley.
Good evening. My name is Haley Gregorius, and I live on Myrtle Street, which is off of County Road 33, that intersects 32. I served on the Planning District 39 Advisory Committee that the Creekwood property is located in. We spent many hours, over 2 months, listening to other residents of the district, seeking advice from professionals, and finally developing a zoning ordinance and map that was feasible and reasonable for our community to grow responsibly. That work went before this commission and then was approved by the county commission in July of 2023. So not even a year ago. But yet here we are, hearing the request of another developer to rezone for smaller, more dense, and compact lots. They're not asking for the ability to put in a subdivision, obviously. The property is already zoned for RSF3. They are asking for more, the ability to have more lots. This area is already busy with the Newton School across the street, as you pointed out, and the highly traveled intersection of Highway 181 and 32. So to staff's comments about being compatible, I totally disagree. It is not compatible with the area. It does not have any RSF4 in our district. I've reviewed the map again. I was on the committee, and to my knowledge, we have no RSF4 in our entire district. And just because it has 0.9 acres, if I did my parcel map right and did my calculations, which you have in your handout, just because it has 0.9 acres of a 16-acre parcel, that's a loophole to be able to apply for this application. That's all it is a loophole. And then the fact that it was a larger parcel and now it's down to 16 acres is just because that encompassed that 500-foot variance or whatever you want to call it. Again, the loophole to get it there. So basically, more lots, more people, more traffic, it's more congestion. I've lived in this area all my life, pretty much. I'm 52, born and raised here, except when I went to school, came back. I live on family land. Change is inevitable. I get that. But we need to be responsible with how we do it. The bottom line for this rezoning request seems to be money. RSF4, obviously smaller lots, more lots equals more money. And that may be fine in the corporate area, but this is what's left of rural Baldwin County. And the bottom line here should be what's best for our residents and our community, and that is not rezoning to RSF4. Thank you.
Okay. Chris Frigo.
My name's Chris Frigo. I live at 14263 State Highway 181. Y'all encouraged us to get zoned. We did. We're already here to get that stuff changed, and, you know, I don't think it should be changed. I think it should be left the way it is. We already have too many people, and it's, you know, I feel like if it passes, it's just going to snowball from one thing to the next, and it'll just be on and on and on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Doug Ward.
Hello, my name is Doug Ward, and I think I joined the 39 acres. I'm not sure if this little parcel connects me or not on the bottom side, but I mean, I agree with Haley. I was on the board just like Danny and Haley was, and we, you know, spent many hours up there working on this thing. And, you know, my biggest concern is the school. My father sold that piece of property. It was family property to a developer in Pensacola, I think around 2005. He applied for a subdivision, and they denied him completely because there was only one entrance and exit only on 32. He had to have an alternate way to get out, or they wouldn't approve it, and none of us would sell him any more property, so he couldn't get out. And so, you know, the traffic is horrible. I don't know how many of y'all live that way, but it's, and of course, there's several subdivisions already been approved and being worked on now, so the school is going to have to grow. It's probably going to double in size in the next 4 or 5 or 6 years, so the traffic is just going to get that much worse. So, you know, we just want to be very responsible on what we do going forward, and that's what we really try to do on our board, was to be as responsible. You know, we all live here. We all want to continue to live here. And just like what they're saying, you know, the developers, you know, understand making money. I'm a self-employed person. I like making money myself, you know, but I'm still here. You know, when they get done, they're gone to somewhere else, you know, and just like Mr. Baldwin said, we're going to leave us with the leftovers. And, you know, and I don't mind the subdivision. I know it's coming. We can't stop it, you know, but we need to do it responsible. And I would appreciate y'all, you know, denying this request. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Barnett.
Kathy Barnett with Dewberry Engineers. Cheryl Stovall's here with the project Creekwood LLC. I just wanted to highlight a few points. I know that rezonings are always very emotional, and so we don't talk about the subdivision, we don't talk about a lot of things, but the future land use map and the flume and the development was supposed to also be a development guide, a guide for growth. And the flume and this local planning district 39 set up these neighborhood nodes. And so Cheryl approached Dewberry to look at this project, and it was kind of the playbook for how do you want to see growth in Baldwin County. And we didn't see a loophole. It was, here's what's allowable, and here's what we consider good growth and good development within these corridors. So within this radius node, plus 500 feet, you are eligible and have a right, and we see that there's an intensity within this node to create these neighborhood centers, to create more walkability, to address more density within these corridors. So we're trying to follow the guidebook. We're trying to do what the Planning Commission and staff has set forward for how do we want to grow. And that's why that was put in there. So we've been working on this project with what's feasible, what makes sense. So I want to be very deliberate that we're attempting to follow the rules and procedures and the guidance documents that Baldwin County has put out for developers. I think it's important too, compatibility-wise, it's R3. R4 is not a big jump in my estimation. We're still talking about the same moderate development potential that we're calling it. It's in the same zoning classification from the land use handbook. Furthermore, before 39 came into play just a year ago, give or take, it was unzoned, Baldwin County, and the subdivision to the south, the Haven at Gaineswood, are 60-foot lots. So they are R4 lots that are adjacent to this property. So it's not incompatible. It's previously approved before this zoning provision was put into place. So again, I think the recognized intensity of these nodes is important to address and really see, because it's your regulations that we're attempting to follow. Knowing that, we knew that traffic and the schools were going to be a big concern. So we went ahead and looked at bus routes, and we also looked at traffic to understand, is this going to be a burden? Because we knew that anytime you ask for an R4 zoning, the questions, concerns about density and traffic, particularly adjacent from a school, would be a concern. So we hired HSA Columbia, and they did their traffic studies and traffic counts. And I know you're not looking at that and the details and the requirements and what you have to require if a subdivision were to come forward is kind of what comes later, but I do want to highlight just a couple of sentences. Existing conditions capacity analysis, all four intersections, and primarily County Road 32 and 13, and County Road 32 and 181, and staff has it. They just, again, they're trying not to have us go too deep into the minutia when you're looking at rezoning, because it should be about compatibility. All four intersections have an overall level of service of A or B in both the morning and evening peak hours, with all approaches at level of service C or better, with the exception of the eastbound approach at Highway 181. The school driveways, and let me find that one here. All three driveways have an overall level of service of A in both the morning and PM peak hours, with approaches at level of C or better. So that's for County Road 32 with the driveway, County Road 32 middle driveway, and County Road 32 east driveway for the schools. And then future conditions analysis, all intersections, so this would be moving forward. We provided with a traffic study kind of an intended site plan, what may or may not be approved, because obviously they have to look at counts. And so they, as you know, look at all the future development and the existing approved subdivisions when they're doing these traffic counts. And so the future service, the intersection capacity analysis using Synchro was updated to include existing volumes projected to the 2027 build-out, trips from approved developments, and trips from the proposed project for morning and peak hour conditions. And then it says, basically, all intersections are at a level of service C or better. The only approach at LOSD is the eastbound approach at Highway 181. The addition of project trips will not result in capacity issues. So, conclusions, recommendations. This analysis has shown that the intersections in the study area are currently operating at level of service A or B, and that the trips from the proposed Creekwood project will not degrade the level of service beyond acceptable levels. Based on ALDOT Access Management Manual guidelines, a westbound left turn lane is recommended, and blah, 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 and then some taper lengths. So we've attempted to do kind of all of the due diligence to make sure that we understood what those needs would be. So that's the school. We talked about the RS4 master plan, 39. So I think with that, we also surveyed the property to make sure that we would actually know what we were asking for with the 500 feet, and we drew the polygons accordingly so that we'd be compliant. So if there aren't any other questions.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Barnett?
Yes, sir.
So it is a rezoning, and it's not the time to ask what y'all intend to do there. But the master plan is just a guideline, for sure. But in the spirit of the master plan, do you think that going from RSF3 to RSF4 will better meet the needs of the community? And if so, how? Just in the spirit of the master plan.
Cheryl would
You
like
won't
to
have to
address
answer that
but-
until later,
yeah.
obviously, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious, you know, if we are hearing from the community and maybe the best interest of it isn't getting bigger, smaller, that's not to decide here, but I just want to, I guess I'm asking, can you do what you want to do without going to RSF4?
I was trying to make it a connection to the school, create something that families can afford to live in, but something nice, but that's walkable. So we're also looking at how we can create pedestrian traffic there, if that's possible, at least to make it safer for people to go across the school. And, I mean, I think having something that's smaller in the front that can have larger lots in the back can allow us, because we've got an entrance plan for that end that's going to be closer to access to the school, and having pedestrian access there is what I was looking at. I was just trying to do something nicer, you know, have a better budget to enhance that front area with. That's all I was trying to do. And it looks like they're trying to create something that's different than just the long 2 lanes where people are flying, and that's, to me, that's more dangerous. But if they're planning on putting commercial consistent with the plan they came up with, it looks like, I mean, eventually it's all going to become that way. So, I don't know. The intent is good, and I think it would enhance it.
Okay, any other questions?
I was just going to add to it. I think that the part of what we saw in the comprehensive plan or in those discussions throughout those community meetings was that people wanted to see diversity, and this does provide diversity. It's not the same cookie cutter house throughout the developments. You know, there's not a builder decided on. We don't know if it's going to happen. Cheryl's been talking to a number of different people to see what works, because she lives here and wants to do something. But it's a matter of attempting to follow the rules, providing a product that makes sense within the planning guidance that we've been given, and doing it right.
Have you all done any research or discussion with the school as to how many students A versus, or 3 versus 4 would account for?
So just like you, we haven't gotten any feedback from the schools either. So they've received a copy of the plan. We've received no comments at that, unless you've gotten something recently.
Well,
yeah.
With the traffic study, they had some discussions about bus routes and so forth, and I was trying to let them get that done before I started diving into that.
If I did a little bit of mathematics on this, and I was told there'd be no math in this, but if you take the 10,000 square foot average lot and you break it down into the 16 acres that is there, you're likely to add 138 students to the school or from the neighborhood. If you break it down to 7,500 square feet per lot, you're looking at 184 students, and that computes to almost 30 students per grade if the kids that live in that neighborhood go across the street. And that's one of the things when we talk about health, safety, and welfare, that's one of the things that concerns me personally, and should concern the county school system as well.
I think Baldwin County said that it's their job to account, plan, and develop for the growth. And so they tend not to weigh in because they see it as their responsibility to address how they're going to provide safe schools for our children. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have. Sign up to speak, and I'm going to close the public hearing. Oh, I don't have it on my list, but come on up. There's no follow-ups, by the way. Once you've spoke, you can't come back up.
Oh, come on. Anyway,
Give
my
us your
only
name.
concern
Give us
is-
your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sissy Hawkins, and I live at 11567 Branchwood Drive off of 33 in Fairhope. My concern with this development is kind of like what y'all were talking about with the one in Alberta, even though that's a PRD. You go down to a 7,500-foot lot, you're going to have 50-foot width, you're going to have problems with parking, you're going to have people parking in their yards. The density. We need to keep down the density of these properties in these residential areas. Now, I appreciate them doing their due diligence on everything, and I realize that there's other things that they could do with that, I guess, 16 acres or how much ever of it falls within that node, that little loop
that it's fallen through that could be worse, but at the same time, your lot size. I mean, going R4 is just, it's too dense. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Let me say something first. I know that there's some things have been said, but I just want to be really clear, Mr. Bolton and some of the others that made the comment. I want you to understand, first off, the request fits what our regulations says they can do. They didn't, I know it sounds like, well, they've already done all this work and now they're here asking for a change. Well, the regulations allow for this, so just don't fight that battle. But keep in mind that this same document also says because you're in that loop does not guarantee approval. In fact, it actually says it does not guarantee approval. So that puts it in a gray area. And that's what we gotta deal with. I mean, I think we're hearing what they'd like to do, but we all understand some issues here. But I just want to be clear that they've done exactly what they're allowed to do by the regulations. So in making the request. So with that, any other questions for staff? Selena's back up here. Selena, do you need to add anything?
I do not, no.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, you're absolutely correct. It's not, when you're dealing with zoning cases, there's a lot of factors that you have to understand and consider, and you all are bringing up some very good points. I just wanted to clarify that, when we talk about the regulations that are in place, and I know this is a very newly zoned district, and a lot of the reasons for the future land use map and these local provisions that we're talking about was, again, trying to contemplate and guide growth in the most appropriate areas within the planning districts within the county. So, certainly nothing is ever guaranteed, but when you look at a long-range plan for the county, this is kind of what we would anticipate to happen and bring on. So that a lot of our review and recommendations are based upon what the planning district did during their planning process by creating these nodes and creating these, what can and can't be allowed. If RSF4 was never wanted in that planning district, then it shouldn't have been included in the plan anywhere, but it was included in the neighborhood centers, and so it is within property owners' rights to apply for that. It does not mean it's a guaranteed approval by any means, but it does certainly comply with what the future land use map and the local provisions of that planning district, call out for you to consider. So now it's really up to this board and the county commission to understand and consider all the factors together, for this specific request. So just to be clear that's where staff is, that we go by the regulations that this board and the county commission approve. This does comply with those, and we feel like it is consistent with what the long-range plan for the county would anticipate for this area. And with that, you guys can make a recommendation to the county commission.
All right, unless, Jamie, you got something?
I had a question, Selena. I think two different people spoke about the RSF4, one saying that there wasn't any in the district and one saying there was. And I don't see it on the map. Can you tell me where there's RSF4?
I believe the statement was there's a subdivision just south of here that has RSF4 size lots because it was developed prior to zoning coming into effect, which they could have done that size lot without zoning.
That's right.
And it's in the district, or it's in Fairhope? I didn't.
It's in this district. The subdivision was developed prior to zoning being instituted in this planning district. So when it was developed, it was unzoned, so it was allowed to do 7,500 square foot lots.
And it's directly to the south. There's Havens and Gaineswood. And it's, no, but it's under construction plan review. It was approved last year. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? This is a recommendation to the county commission, and for those that spoke tonight, just so that you'll know, in case I haven't said it before, this is a recommendation to the county commission. They'll hold a public hearing and make the final decision, so you'll have an opportunity to speak at that meeting also, just like you did here. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we deny the change.
And Mr. Bolton's making a motion that we recommend denial. Do I have a second?
Second.
All All right, Mr. Boone, second the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to open a public hearing now for case number SPP 24-08, Caroline Oaks subdivision. Anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Waters?
All right, Mr. Chairman, this is a preliminary plat approval request for a 3-lot commercial subdivision. This property is located on the west side of State 181 and north of Pleasant Road near City of Daphne. The southwest corner of this property is currently zoned CR and the northeast is zoned B1. A traffic study was not required for this development. The drainage improvements were reviewed and accepted by the permit engineer. The fire protection did not have any, the fire local authority did not have any objections towards or comments for this department, for this subdivision. A little bit of a history approval here is that a couple months back you saw this request as a rezoning where the northeast corner of the subdivision was in front of you from CR for B1. The Planning Commission did recommend a denial, but the County Commission overturned and approved the request. Here is a copy of an enlarged copy, I'm gonna move this clock here, of the proposed subdivision. Lot C consists of approximately 7 acres and is the lot that's zoned CR. That is where the assisted living is currently under construction, and the other 2 lots are zoned B1. Okay, here's your locator and site map. Staff's recommending approval. We did have some conditions here, but all of them have been met. The applicant has submitted a waiver request from the requirements to install sidewalks. Lot A technically triggers that requirement due to its lot size. But Lot B and C exceeded the requests for any requirements of sidewalks, and staff does agree that if sidewalks were to be installed here, there is actually nowhere for it to connect to along 181. So we are recommending approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So all the existing construction that's going on right now is on Lot C?
Yes. Ashley Campbell, our natural resources planner, has been working closely with the developer and the contractor, and we are expecting that construction to be done maybe within the next 60 days.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Waters?
I have a question.
Ms. Burnett?
Couple of questions. Making sure I'm reading it right. On Lot B and Lot A, there's a 25-foot rear setback. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then there is is it a 10-foot or 15-foot utility easement? Do you see that?
There is the required utility easement. Let me go back into here. Would be based on the utilities is typically 15 feet unless the utility company.
15?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless the utility companies ask for more.
All right. Is that an existing overhead utility?
There is a existing 100 feet power line easement in the rear of Lot C. That's the overhead, but everything else should be underground.
Okay. We had a lot of comments from the neighborhood. I don't see a buffer on here, you normally don't see that until the site plan review. Then my question would be, what's a typical buffer?
It would be 25 feet buffer, typically from the B1 to, I think, RSF2 community that's to the north. The buffer along Lot C is being currently planted, and a privacy wood fence has already been installed, but Lot B and A would not be actually planted until a site plan is in front of us for review.
Is that utility easement inside this setback?
It's along the exterior boundary.
So is the 15 feet part of that 25-foot setback? Or is that actually a 40-foot setback?
No, it is a 25 feet setback.
Can you use this is just a question. Can you put a buffer in a utility easement?
Yes, you can. There would be some limitations on
how
structures
much
you could put in there, but landscaping and fences are allowable.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'm technically challenged when it comes, this thing just messed up, so whoever, who signed up to represent this project, if you can't, just come on up and give us your name, and if you've signed up to speak in opposition, to be prepared to come up. I won't call you, you'll just come up and I'll acknowledge you.
Good evening, my name's Jessica McDill. I'm here on behalf of Caroline Oaks Baldwin, the applicant, and we're here on our preliminary plat for our subdivision. As staff has recommended it, we have met all the requirements for the subdivision and are seeking your approval this evening. We're glad to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, anybody have any questions, Mr. McDill? Thank you, ma'am. All right, if you're here in opposition, if you'll just come on up. If there's more than one, just kind of either line up or come up closer to the table here, unless you're representing everybody. Give us your name and address.
Dr. Monica Chilelli. I live at 28131 Annabelle Lane. I'm in the Lansdowne community opposite of 181. I'm the Lansdowne HOA president, so I've come here in representation of our neighborhood. I also have another board member with me. And our biggest concern as a neighborhood is we're on the exact opposite side of where this business's driveway is. Not only that, it's not a divided highway, so this is 5 lanes of traffic, so we can't see the other side where now this business is going to be coming out. Sorry, I'm nervous. And what we're finding as the construction has been happening is they got people pulling up to turn onto 181, either going north or south. I'm 2 cars back, and I got traffic going either way. I don't know my position when I'm trying to turn left. Is it your turn? I don't know. I can't see you. It's really dangerous. And this is right after the divided median ends. So they're moving that divided median a little bit so that traffic going north on 181 can turn left into this business. But I'm also trying to turn left, which I don't think is going to happen anymore. So I'm just concerned about getting in and out of my home. We have teenagers driving, crossing 5 lanes of traffic, and we didn't really realize the impact until this construction started. And now it's scary, especially 55 miles an hour on that 181. It's scary. But now to have that opposing driveway and having more businesses, more cars coming in and out, that's the concerns of our neighborhood. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Was there anybody else in opposition that wanted to speak? Ms. McDill, was it only you? Was anybody else in your group to speak? If you want, if. I'm the surveyor, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Okay, all right.
And I just want to add something, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. on the citizen concerns. The applicant does have an approval from AlDOT that did require some improvements, and they have installed or are in process of installing a right turn lane and some other improvements. And as we receive site plan approvals for the other 2 lots that will now become Lot A and B, we will reach out once again to AlDOT to verify that the current improvements that have been installed are still in accordance with the newly commercial use that's being proposed, just to get their feedback in case something else has to be done, depending on what's proposed.
Okay? Any other questions? Comments?
Did they purposely make the road, do that little jog to line up with the road across the street so you can see when you got somebody coming?
That would probably be a good question for the applicant.
Okay. You know, the way I just was thinking, looking, trying to make it where they come together and you can see what's going on both sides.
Yes, sir. The AlDOT permit, these driveways were adjusted and moved, and that access way moved at the direction of AlDOT to line this up, and we are also putting in a left turn and a decel lane for the right turn in under our AlDOT permits.
All right. Any other questions? I will entertain a motion then.
Make a motion, we accept it.
Motion to approve? Mr. Bolton's made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Mr. Seibert seconded the motion. Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, our last case is open the public hearing for CSP 24-13, Candyland Storage Buildings. Anybody need to declare prior communication on this item? Ms. Waters?
All right, Commissioners, this request is for CSB 2413 for Candyland Storage Buildings. The applicant's requesting a commission site plan approval for storage facilities. The owner is Candyland Storage LLC, and the applicant and engineer of record is Chris Lee with Lee Engineering. This property is located on District 21 and is currently operating as a commercial. Here's your site map and your locator map. All of the surrounding adjacent property owners are zoned either RA and RR with agriculture and commercial uses. Here's a picture of the subject property. As you see here in the back, I have put a call out where there are already existing storage buildings. Here's your zoning requirements for RR that does allow storage facilities with a conditional approve. And here's your site plan reflecting the existing and the proposed storage buildings. Here's your landscaping plan, your drainage. The flume does conforms with this request. The Baldwin County flume land use potential does indicate this for potential rural LID potential for the area. These storage buildings, they were built and constructed around 2006, and that was prior to when this district became adopted zoning. So although the flume recommends agricultural use, staff supports the criteria that's in consideration for these storage facilities. The use should not distract from the public's convenience at the planned location. A mini warehouse is allowed with a conditional use on RR, and staff is unaware. if the proposed use will unduly decrease or devalue any of the neighboring properties. The adjacent uses are vacant and commercial, and the proposed mini warehouse should not impose an excessive burden or substantial negative impact on the surrounding adjacent uses. And staff's recommending approval with the general conditions listed below. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay. Is there someone here representing Chris? You need to say anything? Anybody have any questions for Mr. Lee? Not? All right. Is there anybody here that's in opposition? Okay. I'll close the public hearing. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I heard two different ones. Michael? Mr. Mullet made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Davis? Any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, that was our last item. We have no new business, public comments. There's none listed on here. Staff reports.
Mr. Chairman, staff doesn't have anything else to add this month, but we'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. Mr. Ackerman, you have anything?
Just ditto on Jay's.
All right. Legal counsel.
No, thank you.
We brought you all the way here and really didn't call on you one time tonight. That's how it goes sometimes. Jamie, you had something? Yeah. I talked to him, but I only talked to him this morning, so. All right. Anybody have anything else? Reed, again, good to have you on board. Way to jump in there and start asking questions. That was good participation. I know we had a lot of difficult ones on the agenda, but it's what we do. All right, our next meeting is July the 11th. Appreciate everybody being here. We'll see you next month. We are adjourned.